So tonight's lecture, the reason we've got this in the syllabus is because in our occupation, in our profession, on a daily or a weekly basis, we deal with death. And it's often unlike human doctors who perhaps, you know, what we do, we go to a general practitioner, they then send us to a specialist, then maybe we go to a hospital. Whereas in our situation, we tend to get the animal, sometimes from when they've been really little babies, and we see them through the length of their life, okay? Because their life is sadly, in many cases, much shorter than ours. And we also have to help our pet parents, the people for years and years who have looked after these wonderful pets, part of the family. We have to help them sometimes make a very difficult decision. And that's the decision on whether an animal lives or dies. Okay? Now you may think that's quite an easy thing sometimes to make a decision. But I just want to, for 1 minute, ask you in this room, can you think of a situation with humans that you would have to make that decision? Now, I think some of you may be human nurses or work in hospitals. And often in that situation, with elderly parents or relatives, we may be involved in a discussion with a doctor. But in many, many countries, including Hong Kong, there is no way that we can take a human life. Okay? And yet we're asking our pet parents to end the life of part of their family members. So if you can grasp that concept, this is a very, very difficult subject. It's a very difficult subject to work with and even to understand. Okay? So go back to my question. Can you think where somebody may make a decision to end a human life? Where in the world? Don't just think about Hong Kong. Where anywhere could you think of a decision that one human being was going to end the life of another human being? Have a guess, don't be shy. I know you don't like to talk. Where in our planet, in this wonderful world we live in, would a human being be given or be allowed to take the death or kill another human being? A death penalty. Now, who orders a death penalty? A judge. Okay? And thank you, that's the answer I was looking for. Because I want you to understand that somebody, the level in our society, who's went through all his study, all his degrees, all his qualifications, has been given the right, in some countries, to end the life of another human being. It's a judge. So if you think back to what we're asking our clients to do, it's a humongous decision that they've got to make. Nowadays, some of the other students in similar classes, they've likened it to terrorism, you know? Because terrorists sometimes want to end other human lives. And sadly at the moment, we're living in a very, very tumultuous, almost dangerous world. So dealing with death with our pets is something I want you to always take very, very patiently, seriously, humbly, because nobody makes this decision easily, especially if they've just lived. Whether it's 1 week or 1 day with a pet, because sometimes pets are adopted or they find homes and they're not going to survive to whether it's after many, many years with a family. Okay? So that's the first thing I wanted to say. So tonight, we're dealing with death. Okay? And our objectives tonight are up here. We're going to understand the processes that result in death in a veterinary clinic. We're going to understand the various responses to death in our clients and our pet owners or our pet parents, the staff and the public. And the staff, that means everybody that works in the clinic, because whether you're working in customer service, or whether you're a doctor, or whether you're a cleaner or a kennel keeper or a veterinary assistant, we're all involved with death in one way or another when this happens. We want to be able to guide a pet owner through the process of euthanasia. And we want to understand the principles of dealing with an unexpected death. So the first word as part of your, remember the first time we talked about this new vocabulary you're going to get from these classes, all these new words and terms? I want to discuss this word here, euthanasia. Now, would anybody like to guess what it means? Have you heard of the word before? So a few of you are nodding your heads. Okay. It's from an ancient language. It's probably from Latin, this word. Okay. No, do you want to guess what euthanasia means? Is it a soft word? Euthanasia, it's quite a soft word. It's quite a gentle word. Okay. So, hi, come on in. Euthanasia, it means a gentle death, a kind death, okay? Not a nasty death, okay? Now, before, when we asked about dealing with death and who can make this decision, somebody mentioned that a judge can order a death penalty, okay? I mentioned terrorism. Okay. In these situations, do you think that death is a gentle death, a kind death? I don't think so. Okay. Although as humans we may try and make it be, but in fact it's not the same as euthanasia. We're talking in these situations about executions. Okay. We're talking about elimination or extermination, all these E's. So the English word, there's 4 E's I always associate with different forms of dying, killing, death. It's final, nobody's coming back. But in this situation, we're dealing with a gentle death, a soft death, a death that I think we would all wish on our friends and on our loved ones and for ourselves. Okay? We don't know what's ahead of us, but there's one thing that every single person in this room shares. One day, every one of us is going to die. We don't know when, we don't know where, and we don't know how. But we're all going to end our life. And I hope for every one of us here, we have a peaceful death, a gentle death. Because I watched my father die with not a peaceful death. And it's not something I would ever want anybody to experience. Okay? So euthanasia is your first big English word tonight. Okay? The second one, it's just this little thing on here. Can you read it? It says R.I.P. Does anybody know what that means? Rest in peace. Okay. And this is a common English phrase or abbreviation that we put on gravestones and grave markers that hopefully the person or the animal who's died, who's lying in this place, rests in peace. So everything about euthanasia and the death that we create in a veterinary clinic, because we create the death, is all about gentle and peace. Okay? As opposed to executions, bombs, terrorism, exterminations. Okay? Okay. Right. So, this is a cutting from the newspaper in Hong Kong, from the South China Morning Post. And this is to illustrate to you a death that was not peaceful. Now, this dog went out for a walk with its owner in the morning, and within 15 minutes, it had sniffed around as dogs do. What does your dog do whenever it takes you out? He sniffs, maybe lifts his leg, looks around, wags his tail, says hello. And this dog, sadly, ate something that was lying around. He ate a herbicide called paraquat. Paraquat's used to kill things, okay? And instead of killing what it was meant to, little parasites and things in the environment of crops, it killed the dog, okay? So this is an illustration of an unexpected death, a death that you don't want to happen ever. Can you give me another example of an unexpected death? Something that it's just the worst thing that happens. You take your dog out a walk and something happens and it dies. Car accident. A car accident. And as veterinary surgeons and veterinary assistants, we do see accidents like this. We had one very recently in our North Point clinic. And a little dog was taken out for a walk from the high-rise. He was taken off the lead and he was wandering around the car park. And guess what? Yeah, a car came in, didn't see the dog, ran right over the dog. Can you imagine the pain of knowing that? If you're at work and you get a phone call, okay? So sadly, that little dog was actually dead when it came into our clinic, but somebody came rushing in with it. So poisonings, car accidents, and we're going on tonight to talk about two different kinds of death. Unexpected deaths that happen quickly, suddenly, unexpectedly, and a planned death. Because at the end of the day, it's all about that animal is no longer alive. Okay. Okay. So, in our veterinary clinics, how does death happen? Has anybody here been involved or witnessed an animal going through a euthanasia? No? Okay. I know many of you have pets, and I know a lot of you come to these classes because you want to learn how to look after your pets better, okay? And keep them living longer. But in veterinary hospitals, we have to face up to and deal with death. So death expectedly can happen because it was planned, and you all know what this word means now, okay? It can be a result of an untreatable illness or injury, okay? Something that we just can't fix, okay? But we're going to expect that to happen as a result of a predictable or a complication of a known disease. Can you think of something? What about some disease you've got and then something happens and you die? What's the common thing? Heart disease. Of course, heart disease, okay? And other things like kidney disease, liver disease. A lot of people say cancer at this time. And I know Dr. Kurtz probably talked to you a little bit about cancer because he's our cancer or our anti-cancer doctor, okay? Because cancer is now a curable disease. Not every cancer, but we can now work with animals and help them to get over and recover from cancer. And also in very old animals with multiple problems. Sometimes there just comes a time when it's the time to die. And I can understand and accept that. I'm a little bit older than most of you. And I've talked with elderly people. And sometimes, as we get older, sometimes it's time to die. Okay? And sometimes animals do the same. And sadly, sometimes, the family finds it very difficult to let the animal go. And that can depend on religions. It can depend on different family members. Okay? And sometimes it may depend on who's available at the time when it's happening. Okay? Sometimes people just want to keep their dog living another day so somebody can come in and see it. Okay? And what we have to do is work out when is the best time for a euthanasia. We don't want animals to continue to suffer. Okay? Now in Hong Kong, euthanasia is performed by veterinary surgeons. In many countries, especially in Asia, a veterinary surgeon will not perform a euthanasia. Even when, in my opinion as a veterinary surgeon, it would be the best and the kindest thing to do. Just a few months ago, I went over to visit a very large animal shelter. It was in Thailand. And in Thailand, animals will not be euthanized. Okay? Veterinary surgeons will not euthanize a dog. And as a result of that, many, many dogs that gather on the streets of Bangkok, because there's breeding, animals are not desexed, they breed, they have puppies. There's more dogs than people to adopt the dogs or look after the dogs. So what happens is the dogs, if they're collected, they're not euthanized, but they're sent to live in an animal shelter outside Bangkok for the rest of their lives. So I went to visit this shelter, and there was 5,500 dogs in the shelter. Now, I think in Hong Kong, I think we have about 7.8 million people nowadays. Okay? So not as many as the residents of Hong Kong. But can you just imagine how many dogs were in this shelter? And sadly, about 9 to 10 got adopted every month. Okay. Okay. So I'm just sharing this with you because different countries have different ideas. And I'm not saying the Thais are right or wrong, but I know in my opinion, there are many cases, and I saw many dogs there, that as a veterinary surgeon, I personally would have rather ended their suffering than allow them just to die when the body couldn't live any longer. But that's my opinion, and everybody's different. I was in Indonesia last week. I was on a course, and again in Indonesia, many vets will not euthanize an animal. Okay? So we're all a little different here. So anyway, so that's unexpectedly, okay? An unexpected emergency. The classic unexpected emergency we get in Hong Kong, it's usually around Chinese New Year. Phone call goes, oh, my dog's just eaten a box of chocolates. Okay? Chocolates that we love is lethal for a dog. A Labrador only needs to eat a block of chocolate about this size, and it can kill it. It interferes with the oxygen in the body and how the oxygen is transported. So that is an emergency. Your dog will die if it eats too much chocolate. Another one is a box of pills. The dog gets a hold of, especially puppies, they go and they get a strip of anti-inflammatory medication, maybe for pawpaws, you know, granny's sore arthritis. And the dog thinks it's great fun to eat it up. But guess what? That can also put the dog into renal failure and kill them. It can upset their digestive systems. And a very common thing that a lot of people nowadays know, because we're publicizing it more, you know, the beautiful lilies these arum lilies, the pink and white lilies we all see in the flower shops, they're lethal for your cats. Even, you know, the little yellow stamens in the middle, that little powder that comes off the yellow, it drops on your table. If cats get that on their paws and lick their paws, it can cause irreversible kidney damage, and your cats can die. I recently got a nice bunch of flowers from somebody, and right in the middle was some lilies. First thing I did was go and find somebody that didn't have cats and say enjoy the lilies, because I just didn't want to take them home. I didn't want to put them anywhere near my cats at home. So there's lots of little things that we learn. Grapes are not good for dogs either. Okay. So there are poison centers available for the public as well as for doctors. Okay. So this is unexpected. As a result of an unexpected complication of a known disease. So we all know about the heart problem. Everything's in control, but then suddenly something can happen on top of that and an animal can die. An unexpected complication of undiagnosed or unrecognized disease. And also an unexpected complication of routine surgery, anesthesia, or medical treatment. You all know what this word means again? I think you've had it in your lectures. Anesthesia. What does that mean? Paralyzed? No. It's kind of half there, because anesthesia does paralyze the animal. An anesthetic is something that we get, or an animal gets, before an operation, before a surgery. And it makes them go to sleep. And so that, in a way, paralyzes them. But it paralyzes them so they don't feel pain. So a doctor can do the surgery. Okay? But as opposed to the euthanasia, or the dying, there's no coming back. Whereas in an anesthetic, the whole purpose is to make an animal go to sleep, have a procedure, and then waking it up again. Okay? So this is an important word for you if you want to be a veterinary assistant. Okay, so we've talked about that. Okay, everybody. So, how do people respond to death? And what can you do something about? Okay. Now, the most important thing is whether it was expected or not. And one of the things that we talk about nowadays for humans is a thing called a living will. Okay? And actually we encourage pet owners, pet parents, to make a living will as well. And what this means is that when we're very healthy, we've got good facilities, we understand everything around us, we sit down and we write out what's to happen to us. Should we ever be involved in an accident, we've got brain damage, we're in a hospital, maybe we're terminal with some disease. With animals, what I like to do is ask people to go home and as a family decide if or when maybe their elderly dog or cat comes to the time in its life that they may need to make a very, very serious decision about euthanasia or not, everybody is in agreement. So when the time comes, if maybe the daughter's in the UK and the son's in Australia and somebody else is on holiday and maybe it's only the mum or the grandmum that's there, the decision has all been agreed in advance. Okay? And it's much easier on everybody. And this is especially good when it's getting near the death time. Now this doesn't work for an unexpected death so much, and a young animal, because we're not really thinking about that side of it. But for an older animal, for maybe an animal that's getting on in years, maybe there's some of these complications of heart disease or liver disease, it's nice to think about it. And sometimes what's happened with your client or your pet parent before impacts on this decision. Okay? Some people, just as I said about my dad, they may have seen their animal suffer a lot and they don't want that to happen again. Okay. Okay, so what we're just going to run through now is the responses to death. And then we're going to run through how people show their grief. But one of the first things that when an animal dies, and this doesn't matter how the death is people get angry. Yeah? They get angry. They want to blame anybody. Okay? And often they blame themselves more than anybody. Okay? I know when I lost my beautiful cat, I showed you his picture last time because I've still left him in my PowerPoint. He died very, very quickly with me. He died of respiratory disease. Totally unexpected. He was 13 years old. I was so angry. I was angry at him for leaving me so quickly, and I was angry at myself. Did I miss something? And I'm a vet. I'm a doc, you know? This is my baby. I raised him from a little kitten, okay? So we get angry. So you've got to understand how your clients feel in this situation, okay? They can get angry. As I say, I got angry at the pet, and I got angry at myself. And God, why did you let this happen? Yeah? I remember a client a few years ago in our Montauk Hospital, and he had an elderly dog, and had been staying with us for a few days because the dog didn't like to take its pills for its heart disease. And this man did quite a lot of traveling. So when he traveled, he used to bring his dog in, so our staff could give the dog the pills. And the dog was ruined. It was brushed and it was combed and it used to wander around because it was very happy coming into the hospital. Suddenly, unexpectedly, one day, the dog collapsed on the floor. We had 2 vets in the hospital at the time. We had 4 other staff. And despite them being right there, then the dog put on oxygen, heart medications, the dog died. Now, I think you'd have to agree, it was expected. The dog was going to die sometime. What was unexpected, just like me with my cat, was the owner didn't expect the dog to die that day. Okay? The owner came in to visit us, crying, hysterical. He was so upset, he kicked our walls. He didn't know what to do with himself because his dog had died. And often it's because they don't have time to say goodbye at that minute. Okay? Often what you have to understand is because there's something else happening in the person's life as well. In Hong Kong, one of the very interesting things I find is a lot of families here, they get a pet when a member of the family dies. There's a lot of turtles in Hong Kong. They've got a special name. Can you help me with the name in Chinese? I've forgotten, I'm sorry. In Cantonese. But anyway, when a father or a mother or a grandparent dies, the family will often buy this special turtle. Okay? And when the turtle gets sick, then the family relate to the father dying again or being sick again. So it can be a very, very emotional situation to deal with, because you're not just dealing with the pet, you're also dealing with the family, and you're dealing with the emergencies as well. Okay, so anger is shown. Guilt. Should I have noticed he wasn't well? The man I told you about kicking the wall, he felt guilty. I shouldn't have left my dog with you again. I shouldn't have went on that trip to Taiwan. It was only for 2 days. I shouldn't have gone. Yeah? So guilt comes out. Sometimes it's simply relief. Sometimes, you know what? I'm glad it's all over. And some of you mentioned in the first class that you had went through losing a pet. And I know when my beautiful cat called Cypress, he's no longer with me, he was only 10 years old and he had renal failure. And much as I loved him and nursed him for 6 months with renal failure, there was a certain relief when he died, because he was never going to get better. So there was a relief that he had passed, and it was a nice death for him. Some people are sad and they cry. I mentioned the man kicking the wall. He wasn't just kicking the wall, he was screaming as well. Okay? People get anxious. Sometimes people have no response at all. And I find this is worse with men. And I'm not sexist. But women give out their emotions usually a lot easier than men. And often, and I worked in New Zealand and Scotland. You all know I'm from Scotland. And I used to find there, a dog would die and the man would stand around and wouldn't say very much. Mum would be crying, the children might be crying. But the man had a problem expressing his emotions. Okay? So if you're dealing with this situation, just always remember that. Sometimes people come and say, oh, it's okay. It's just my dog, just my dog. And the classic line is somebody will say, I'll get another one. Or the worst that can happen is one of your friends or your colleagues, a workmate. Oh, you lost your dog? Ah, easy, get another one. Go to the SPCA. They have plenty of dogs. Yeah? So sometimes people just don't understand what you're going through in this situation. Denial. Sometimes it's really hard to accept that an animal has died. We had a little Pomeranian. You all know what the Pomeranian is? Little brown dog. Remember we looked at it last? Little brown dog. We had a little Pomeranian in our North Point clinic. For 2 years, the little Pomeranian came to our clinic every single day because he needed an injection. He needed an injection because he was diabetic. Have you come across diabetes yet? A lot of humans get diabetes. Let me write this English word up for you. Diabetes. Okay? It's when your blood glucose isn't controlled properly by the hormones in your body. Very common in humans, very common in some countries. Well, this little Pomeranian was diabetic. And he came to our clinic because he wouldn't let his mum or his dad give him his shot against diabetes, his insulin shot. Now, insulin is a hormone that we all have in the body, and it comes from the pancreas and it helps us to control our sugar levels. Anyway, this little dog needed insulin injections every single day to keep him stable. He was a lovely little dog, super owner. And one day we got a phone call. Owners woke up in the morning and the little dog, he was called Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo wasn't moving. Rushed into the hospital. Yo-Yo had died. He had died overnight. Now, we know with a disease like diabetes, the lifespan is usually shortened. But even the day before, and these were great owners, they loved their dog to pieces. Even the day before, they didn't realize that Yo-Yo wasn't feeling well. But for whatever reason, when they woke in the morning, Yo-Yo had died. So anyway, we went through the procedure. Yo-Yo was cremated. Everybody went away. 6 weeks later, Yo-Yo's dad, the father in the household, he came to North Point. He said, Dr. Pauline, can I have a word with you? I said, yeah. He says, I've got a problem and I don't know what to do. I said, what's up? And he said, every day my wife still puts the food down in the water for Yo-Yo. Every single day she changes the water, she changes the food, and she puts new food out. She can't believe he's died. So his wife was in total denial. Now he said, what will I do? And I said, just comfort her. Just let her do it. Because hopefully, and it did happen, she will begin to accept it. But at that stage, to help with her healing, she needed to do this. Okay? And after that, people go into a calm acceptance. Okay? Nice calm acceptance. Thank you. I'm glad it's over. And we can feel gratitude. We can feel gratitude maybe to the vet or the veterinary assistants that you helped them through it. We can feel gratitude for the life of the pet. We can feel gratitude for all the wonderful things that your pet's given you. Okay. Is that right there? Oh yeah, okay. Some people do shout and wail and scream, and other people also get very depressed. Okay? They get very sad, very sad. And some people are uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, especially if you go to work and somebody asks how your pet is. And they just simply don't like talking about personal subjects. Okay, any questions on that? Everybody's very quiet tonight. You know, I used to give this lecture last. And I said a few courses ago, I am never giving this lecture last again. Because it's too sad a lecture. The first lecture I give you is the boring professional lecture. Okay? This is the sad death lecture. Next time I'm going to do animal welfare and animal rights, so we'll have a bit more excitement there. Okay. Now, has anybody heard of this poem before? It's in your lecture notes, and it's in English and Chinese. I'm just going to quickly read this to you in English. And then I would like a volunteer to read it in Chinese. Okay? Because I know some of you English is maybe not quite as good as mine. But I'm afraid there's no way I can read it in Chinese for you. Okay? So, I'm going to read The Rainbow Bridge. And I'm just going to show you this little book. This was written by a friend of mine, Dr. Elaine Cebuliak. And she also, like me, feels very strongly about this subject. Okay? And I'm going to read you a little bit in a minute about from the book. But let me just read The Rainbow Bridge to you. And you can follow me, you can follow the notes, or you can follow me here. Okay. There is a bridge connecting heaven and earth. It is called the Rainbow Bridge because of its many colors. Just this side of the Rainbow Bridge, there is a land of meadows, hills, valleys with lush green grass. When a beloved pet dies, the pet goes to this place. There is always food, there is always water, there's also warm spring weather. All the animals who have been ill and old are restored to health and vigor. Those who were hurt or maimed are made whole and strong again, just as we remember them in our dreams of days and times gone by. The animals are happy and content, except for one small thing. They each miss someone very special to them who had to be left behind. They all run and play together, but the day comes when one suddenly stops and looks into the distance. Her bright eyes are intent. Her eager body begins to quiver. Suddenly she begins to run from the group, flying over the green grass, her legs carrying her faster and faster. You have been spotted. And when you and your special friend finally meet, You cling together in such a joyous reunion. The happy kisses rain upon your face. Your hands again caress the beloved head. And you look once more into the trusting eyes of your pet, so long gone from your life, but never absent from your heart. Then you cross the rainbow bridge together, never again to be separated. I'm going to tell you a little secret. I mentioned my father before. And when my father was dying, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, Pauline," he said, "Mila." And Mila was our family golden retriever that had died a few years before. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, Pauline, I see Mila at my door." Now, I don't know if there's a rainbow bridge. I don't know what's ahead. But that was a personal experience of mine with my dad, with our golden retriever. Mila was waiting at his hospital door. So it just makes me hope that maybe I'll see Mila again one day. Okay? And some of you I know are the same who have lost some pets. Okay, so we're going to push on with this. As I mentioned to you before, I don't read from the lecture notes because I know you can all read. So this is just how we experience grief. I've went through the stages before, but these are what we experience when death happens. So just to recap, shock and denial, emotional release, this is crying or don't want to talk to somebody or hiding sometimes, body reactions, no, I don't want to speak about it, guilt, anger, depression and panic. And when you get into acceptance, this is when we understand we're finally coming to terms with what's happened. And Elaine wrote a very lovely note about acceptance. This happens when you can look back and remember wonderful moments you have shared with your lost one. And by that stage, we're feeling relatively normal again. Okay? That's acceptance. The rest of these is just ongoing from acceptance. We get to a time that we realize and we'll begin to live with the loss. Okay. Now in Hong Kong, I have a wonderful, sad but true story. When I first came to Hong Kong as a young vet, I was working, it was a Sunday afternoon. Suddenly there was all this confusion in the waiting room of the clinic I was working in Won Chai. And there was a family around me with a bird cage. You know the little cages? People take the birds out, okay? This little bird had gone to Victoria Park. It was a little silver eye, one of these little birds with a little round eye. When the bird cage was hung on the tree in Victoria Park, a hawk had come, or some kind of large bird, had come flying around, attacked the bird in the cage, pierced its body, and caused some blood, and the little bird fell to the bottom of the cage. So the owners had come rushing in with this little bird. And the bird was certainly, it wasn't looking the best, but he didn't look like he had just been attacked by a bird about 10 times bigger than him. But when we took the little bird out of the cage, this hawk had managed to pierce the little bird's heart. He had put right through, pierced the little heart. Okay. So I just brought this in because it doesn't matter if it's a dog, a cat, a pet horse or a pet goat or a little bird. It's all about dealing with the death in a situation like this can involve the whole family. When your brother or sister's sick, what usually happens? Your mum or dad, usually mum, takes your brother or sister to the doctor. When the animal's sick in the house, everybody's involved. Everybody comes into the clinic. A lot of the time, not always. But everybody knows if the dog's not eating or the cat's not well. Okay. So there's a very special place for our animals in our families and in our lives. Okay, so what does this mean again? A nice death, a peaceful death. Okay. Okay. So, an expected death. So we've actually gone over this. I'll just quickly go over it again, because a veterinary clinic is about the only place you'll get to make a life or death decision, unless you live in some countries. In some countries, they do allow euthanasia for humans. Can anybody name a country where this happens? Anybody know which country will allow a human being to end their life? Switzerland? Yeah, Switzerland. So quite a few European countries. The Netherlands. Okay. Some states, I think, in the US. Okay. It's not widely accepted. Okay. And some people go to these countries especially to die. Okay, and it's very confronting. Right, how can you help? You all want to be veterinary assistants or work with animals. You can help by making it easy. You can help by being there to support the people for what they need. Okay, you're probably all reading your lecture notes, but what can you do? Make sure they've got tissues. Make sure they've got a quiet place. Have you visited Mongkok yet? Have you visited our hospital there? You have, okay. So we've got a special room there. In fact, tonight I was in Mongkok at 6:30. And Dr. Anders, who was there with our veterinary assistant Olivia, and there was a client, and I'd seen them going back and forwards, and as I walked through to Mongkok to the consultation room, I saw a little dog being taken into our rainbow room, our euthanasia room. Okay? Because obviously a decision had just been made there. Okay. So we want to give them privacy. We want to give people plenty of time. Even when people have made the decision for euthanasia, it can take them a long, long time to say to the doctor, yes, please give it the injection. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And I talked about the living will. It is good if people can share with you before this happens what they would like. Some people like some music. Some people like to have a little candle. Okay. Some people want all the family to come along. Some people don't want to be there when the actual final injection is given. So it's up to you as veterinary assistants, because the clients always talk to you guys more than they'll talk to the doctor. Okay. Right. So once we have made the decision of a euthanasia, and I'm just going to pass this round, it is in your notes, but it's just a euthanasia consent form. And we ask you can just pass it around. We ask everybody now to sign something like this. When I was a young vet, we never did this. We trusted people, we believed. People bringing pets in owned animals. But there's been many situations that an animal is brought in for a euthanasia because somebody wants rid of an animal. Classically in Hong Kong, and organizations like the SPCA, animals are sometimes forced out the house by one family member when the other family member is out of town or not available or not around. So we make sure, as a doctor, that we have somebody who's consenting to this euthanasia. Because as a doctor, we don't take this lightly. Okay? We will not just euthanize any animal that comes in the door. It used to happen that way, but not nowadays. So people have to be responsible and accept the decision for the euthanasia. So we ask them to sign a form. Oh, it's just the front side, yeah. And also, I think this highlights the fact that a decision's been made to kill an animal, to take away a life, a living being. and somebody has to sign this, an ID card is checked, and that's the decision maker in this one. Number 2 is always a hard one, whether somebody will stay when the process happens. Some people just cannot bear it. Other people don't want to let go. People regularly ask me, what should I do, Dr. Pauline? And I would like to suggest, if you're ever in this situation and you have the choice, I would like to suggest you stay with your pet. Because I've witnessed many, many euthanasias. And I've been a doctor for a long time. And I know how upset and how anxious animals get. And they know when we're upset. The good thing about a euthanasia is most animals that come in a clinic, they're used to getting a needle. They're used to something happening. Okay? But my personal opinion is, if you're strong enough, support your pet to the end. Okay? Okay, that's what I'm passing around, so that I know it's not very clear here. And just a consent form. Although the veterinary assistant will explain what's going to happen, it's very, very important that as a doctor, you just go over everything again. Why do we do that? Because this